I'd like New Mexico to come up and do a presentation.
Good morning. My name's Jeff Mann. I'm with New Mexico DOT. My role at the DOT, I've been there since 2006. I was originally hired as the pavement design engineer. My background is geotechnical materials and pavement engineering. 2006 is when I started, and 2013, 2014, when MAP 21, FAST Act, 23 CFR 490 came out, I was moved under asset management. New Mexico DOT linked the pavement design group with the pavement management group, developed a pavement management and design bureau to support some of the asset management directions moving forward. New Mexico DOT is generally decentralized. There are 6 districts. Our group or my group provides some oversight, but generally most of the pavement-related treatment decisions, whether it's preservation or STIP funds, major minor rehabilitations, reconstructions, are made at the district level. So what I've tried to do in the next 12 slides or so is kind of present where we are as a department. Many of the treatment selection decisions, our process, where we stand in terms of condition, some innovations, some quality, and maybe some ideas moving forward. Where we are as a state. So I always like to start off these presentations with state of the practice, and that's kind of state of the practice in my opinion. So I was hoping for more laughs than this, but the bottom left is to Jeff Uhlmeier's dowel bar retrofit. That's actually some Band-Aids. We're all in the process of Band-Aiding our pavements. So anyway, I was hoping for more laughs. Anyway, moving forward. So presentation outline, exactly, I just kind of addressed that. But that's what we'll talk about, our pavement management system, our performance measures, treatment categories, innovations, and it looks like I forgot the quality, but I've made some notes, so moving forward. Our pavement management system, we collect around 13,000 lane miles every year. Our total system is 26,000 plus about 2,000 of unpaved. We pick up all interstates and NHS roadways every year. We do not pick up ramps for whatever reason. The Fugro group picks up our automated data. This is our first year of a 4-year contract with them. Looking forward to moving forward with them. We have about 8,000 miles of chip seal, and I put that note there, continued calibration, because I think sometimes they're kind of moving in and out of our system. And what I mean by that is some might be overlaid with HMA and some might be reconstructed, but generally speaking, based on our pavement management database, we have about 8,000 miles. So roughly a third of our system is chip seal. We do a lot of chip seal in New Mexico DOT. Sorry to the concrete guys, we only have about 250 lane miles of joint plane, and that's really through Albuquerque. If you guys are familiar with Albuquerque, it's right there kind of in the center of the state. I-40 is through town is generally concrete. Joint plane, dowels. We're just doing a CRCP project down in the southern section of New Mexico where New Mexico 136, which is Pete Domenici, it dead ends essentially right at the Mexico-New Mexico border. So we're pretty excited about CRCP. We don't do joint plane, but we're just going to jump right in and do a CRCP. So our pavement condition, we just like most states, we have to present performance measures to our stakeholders, to politicians, to decision leaders. We report two reports to Legislative Finance Committee, LFC, in the annual report. LFC we report to at the end of the year. I'm sorry, end of the fiscal year, and the annual report at the end of the year. We're presenting generally what every other state's presenting. The condition of the system. Condition of the system, good, fair, and poor. We use a condition called the PCR, which is a pavement condition rating. It's as similar as a PSI, a PCI. It is a general health composite index, if you will. Our PCR is really a 45 or better, would be considered fair and good. 45 I think is a little low, but I think that's a general consensus. We also report on the bottom bullet there is 23 CFR 490, which is all in our minds these days. That PCR pavement condition rating is 80% distress, it's more structural, and 20% smoothness, more functional. Every state's got their little ideas of how to present that data. We've adopted 80% fatigue-based distress and 20% functional distress, IRI as it were, or RIDE. There's our thresholds. 45 or less is poor. So moving into it a little more, there's our current data. We are right on that threshold, 90%. The bottom of the graph is really the classification of roadway, but 90% is where we want to be in our interstates. And as we move forward in this presentation, we spend the majority of our money on NHSs, and I'm a National Highway System, and I'm assuming every state does that to varying degrees. Our leaders want our interstates to be at 90%, and we're right there. But you can tell as everyone else is facing, we're downtrending. Fiscal year 14, we're at 93%, and now we're at 90. Not a very popular graph, but the data is the data, unfortunately. So a little bit about miles preserved. We're also trending south. Last year we had about 3,700. This year we had about 2,700. Miles preserved would be, and New Mexico DOT would be defined as crack seals, fog seals, chip seals. We do a lot of microsurfacing. One thing to note is that we spend the majority of our money on federal funds. Let me restate that. So we only have about $6 to $8 million per district for strictly preservation funds. That is state money, where federal highway generally does not contribute to that. And that's where the majority of these preservation funds are spent from. Our treatment of choice is really a mill and inlay. We are allowed to use federal matching funds for 2.5 to 3 inch mill and inlay. So if you look at the majority of our STIP treatments, they're either central plant recycling, cold in situ recycling, full depth reclamation, reconstruction, and these single lift mill and inlays. We don't do a lot of overlays either because we have shoulders and tapers on most roads, or for whatever reason, people just don't like overlays. We do mill and inlays, which there's some advantage there, I think. You're removing some of the cracked material, some of the aged material, but we have a tremendous amount of wrap all throughout the state. So we're trying to find innovative ways to use this wrap material. That is kind of a snapshot of where we stand in terms of miles preserved. And again, the miles preserved, microsurfacing, crack seals, fog seals, chip seals. So we're really looking to try to use as much federal funding as we can. We're an 80-20 state, but really it's probably 85-15 sort of thing. So we're bonded out until, I don't know, 2030 or something, Tisha, probably 2028. We're paying for bonds for, back in the early 2000s, we did a massive GRIP projects, Governor Richardson improvement projects, had to borrow money. There's our lane miles preserved current data 2018. PCR measurements, that's our pavement condition. This is from our LFC, Legislative Finance Committee. A little bit of breakdown. So we're looking, we did some research from about 2012 to 2017. Our annual pavement-related projects is around $200 million. So we spend about a third. Non-NHS, call it 60, 70 million. Interstate NHS, about 60, 65 million, and non-interstate NHS, about 68 million. Our bellywick, if that's the right word, is mill and inlays, some deeper recycling, central plant recycling. We're doing an awful lot of cold in situ recycling, full depth reclamation. We have 18 projects scheduled for full depth reclamation probably in the next 2 to 3 years, anywhere between 6 and 10 miles. We're having some good success with full depth reclamation. It can be argued whether that's a preservation treatment. It's certainly not a very high level. It's really a lot of things you can do with full depth reclamation. But that's coming from that 200 million. 23 CFR 490, everybody's interested in that these days. You can't really tell from that, but that's for our interstates. I think we're good on our interstates. So we might be moving a bit of our money to some of the non-NHS roadways. So we're less than 1% poor on our interstates. I would say our predominant distress. We use a fairly stiff binder in New Mexico, as people can imagine. Our typical binder is PG70 or PG76. So I think we've fairly alleviated, if that's the right word, we've fairly engineered out the rutting issue. I think if anything, our predominant distress is probably top-down cracking. We have a weathering and aging problem. If we look at the good, fair, poor of the three distresses, primarily for asphalt, our HPMS percent cracking is probably what's driving most of our decisions, which that impacts IRI, but most of our rutting it just doesn't exist that much anyway. We don't use a lot of polymer. Well, we use polymer. 76-22 is all on our interstates, but we don't. Some roadways we're requiring more and more of a plus grade and elastic requirement, but we do use a stiff binder. So that's probably a little more than the preservation side of things, a conference, but that impacts our 23 CFR 490. Moving forward a little bit about our pavement management system. We were asked to try to quantify our average life benefit. I think we're all about the same, to be honest with you. Probably every state has differing experiences. How we define our treatments is based on the pavement management database. So it's very simple. It's a very busy slide. I apologize to the group. We're kind of doing similar to what every state is, with the acknowledgement that we're mostly focusing on chip seals, some crack seals, some fog seals, and microsurfacing. I don't know that we have really devoted a tremendous amount of energy in cape seals and things like that, but we do recognize the benefit. We started our pavement management system with Agile, and it was configured in 2012. And we've been spending an awful lot of time trying to develop performance curves, especially when 23 CFR 490 came out and said, look, we need to do a 2 and 4 year prediction. So we've tried to really spend a lot of time on construction history. And in construction history, that's going to help us with our average life benefit. But we typically get 5 to 7 years out of most very high level treatments, preservation treatments. We are on a 7-year, try to do a 7-year chip seal cycle, but I think that's been pushed out even more because of, maybe a couple of bad winters, and then you have some bad winters, and a lot of that money comes from chip seals. So a little bit about our climate. What I mean about bad winters is pretty much north of Albuquerque, you're going to get snow. A little bit that's on our concrete. We only have 250 plus miles of concrete. We do some dowel bar retrofit just outside my house. There's a Paseo del Norte is probably 10 miles of dowel bar retrofit that's been there for 10 to 15 years. It works. Pavement performance curve, those are real costs with ranges. Here it's broken into very cool colors. So some innovations. District 6, 100% wrap chip seal, precast concrete pavement. We're doing it in Albuquerque, New Mexico. That was spoken about on Monday. 100% wrap microsurfacing. That's down in Las Cruces on I-10. We just also put out a new CIR spec that is requiring gyratory, engineering emulsions and lime and cement recycling additive options. And we've also built in that compactive curve that I mentioned earlier. I don't know if it's right or wrong. We've done one job. New Mexico used to be a big leader in CIR. I'm hoping we'll start doing more of that. Quality, we're always going to push on the PMS database. I'm a big believer in treatment type selection. I think we need to do, it's not very popular, but we need to do some forensics or some coring or analysis of what's going on in the roadway before we can come up with a reasonable or an ideal treatment type selection. A little bit on training. I don't know that we have I don't think have an effective training program. It's definitely not formalized. But one thing that I've taken away is try to develop a training and certification. It was discussed yesterday. Nevada, it looks like you guys have some really strong ideas about how to do that. That's something I like to do for the department to encourage quality. I'm a taxpayer and I hate spending my money. That's me. Any questions?
So how are the wrap chip and wrap microsurfacing? How's it going down? How's it performing? What's the early?
Well, District 6, Lisa Vega is the innovator on the 100% chip seal. I think we did a research with UNM, University of New Mexico, Rafi Taffeter, to develop some of those specs and guidelines. As far as I know, it's successful. Leo Montoya down in District 1, Arizona border. I want to say the microsurfacing project was just in June. So I don't have any feedback, positive or negative, on that. But I know Jason Dietz helped him with developing some of the guidelines for that. But I can certainly, hopefully, if I'm back next year, I can let this group know. Yeah, or I can, yeah, take your card or information and maybe we can, I mean, this is how we all learn, right? So,
More of an observation maybe than a question. You mentioned something in your presentation that piqued my interest. We have similar interstate conditions to you. They're actually quite good, and we're blessed with that. But we struggle all the time with, because our other systems don't have enough funding, we struggle, do we take money off the interstates and plug it into the other systems? And it's a dilemma because it's a slippery slope. I watched these interstates over the years, and you know, an interstate typically carries in 1 year what the other roads see in 20.
right.
And it's a slippery slope if you get behind on an interstate. We've continued to prioritize the interstate. We have done some things where, you know, we'll do a single lane project, or we'll not do shoulders or those types of things. And we've been able to save some money, but it's something to watch out for. It'd be fun to discuss that sometime, but that is a struggle because you spend so much money keeping an interstate up.
I guess the only way I can comment on, and I appreciate that comment, I'm sure every state's faced with that. We have I-10, I-25, and I-40 through our state. And it's the 5th largest in terms of land mass, but we've got less than 2 million people, right? But the majority of our money is spent on interstates, as you can tell from this data here. We're running scenarios, we're doing a lot of things with Agile to figure out, hey, how can we transition a little bit of that money but not lose it, right? And that's the risk. Anyway, thank you. Thanks, everyone.
The preceding was produced by the National Center for Pavement Preservation. More information can be found on the web at pavementpreservation.org. Additional support provided by Michigan State University.